Hi, my name is Kim Baker, and I'm President and CEO of Kentucky Performing Arts. We may be shut in, but the arts are not shut down. That's why we're happy to bring you KPA at Home. KPA at Home showcases local and regional artists, connects artists with their audiences, and provides paying gigs for performers whose livelihood has been impacted by COVID-19. We want to thank Brown-Forman for their support of this series and for all they do to keep the arts alive in our community. We hope you enjoy the show, are healthy and hopeful, and we look forward to the day we can be together again. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Louisville. I'm Gregory Acker, a teacher, musician, and homemade instrument builder. I'd like to thank Kentucky Performing Arts, Lift Up Lou, and the city of Louisville for bringing me to you today as part of the Artists at Home series. And it's an honor to be with you and to thank you publicly for the work that you're doing to help our community survive in order to thrive. Welcome to the Woodshed. This is the usual rehearsal home for Cuvée Beau Drum and Dance Ensemble and also Yapa Andean Fusion. But all my musician friends are safely practicing at home. I want to shout out to them. You know, these creative times the difficult times we're in right now have called for a lot of creativity on all of our parts. And that's one thing the arts is great for. Giving something to do for our hands, our hearts, and our minds. Even for a few moments, transporting us through a song, a poem, a dance, a story, a photograph into a different world. I've spent many years as a student and a teacher of world music cultures, and I've been inspired by the incredibly beautiful musics and beautiful instruments. But as an artist without a huge bankroll to buy them, I had to get very creative in the early days to try and make some versions myself out of easily available materials, hardware store finds, household items, and sometimes even driftwood from the falls. When we get creative, you know, the results are often surprising and sometimes unpredictable. I have to say, my early experiments in instrument building were often less than successful, but every time something fails or breaks on you, it can also be a breakthrough in learning for you, teaching you more about how things vibrate and what materials work best. If, like me, you get really interested, you might do some research. I checked out a lot of books from the library and looked at examples and photographs of instruments, even took a class on instrument making, and then one on acoustical physics. I also had a lot of help from a wonderfully creative musician and instrument builder here in Louisville named Mark. You'll meet a couple of his instruments later. So, where does our creativity originate? How did people all over the world create such a beautiful diversity of music? And how far back does all this music making go? I wondered, and maybe you're wondering too. So join me on an imaginary journey back to the creation of music. In the beginning, there was nothing. And then there was something. And then there were living things, fungi and bacteria, jellies and sponges, corals, anemones, crustaceans and fish, plants and trees, starfish and octopi, dinosaurs and salamanders, reptiles, the birds, the bees, the ants, the bats, the butterflies, the mice, the alligators, the whales, the bears and penguins, the rest of the big mammals, and then the arrival of the world's first person. First person, meaning me to me and you to you, was looking around for something to do before a schoolway hall, a mall, or a basketball, before a book or a magazine, a video game or a cell phone, just alone on the planet, with the other first people looking around for something to do. Mm. 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 Ah, ah. First person had just invented the world's first musical instrument. And first person also became the world's first rock star. Now, these instruments fit into a world instrument family, along with sticks like the claves, bells, rattles, shakers, even thumb pianos and xylophones. The family is called idiophones from two Greek roots, idio meaning self and phone meaning sound. Let's take a look. Here we go. Idiophones. Well, they have a lot of different ways to excite the sound in them, and you might think of them as the percussion instruments, but there's more to that story coming up. Well, the first people were getting a little hungry, and they decided to go on a hunt. They made bows and arrows, and they gave first person a set too. And then they took off running after the animals that were also running away from them. But first person happened to be a vegetarian. And so, you don't have to hunt carrots. First person really just stayed behind a while and waited and tried to think of something to do. First person had just invented the world's second family of instruments. You probably know them as the strings, and maybe you've got a favorite. Think about that one now. Well, maybe you said the violin, or its country cousin, the fiddle, perhaps the viola, the cello, the bass. Maybe you thought of the sitar, or the ektar, or of course, the guitar. Well, all of those string instruments fit in a family too. Here it is, the chordophones. Anything with a vibrating string making its primary sound. And there's lots of ways to arrange them. Bows, like the berimbau that I just played, invented in Brazil, zithers, lutes, and really, I'm not a liar, and I'm sure that you're tired of me harping on this subject. The chordophones, the strings. Did you forget about the other first people out on the hunt? Well, they eventually came back with an animal. But dinner wasn't going to be an easy affair. No, there was a lot of work to be done first. Of course, they had to cut up the animal, cut away the things they weren't going to eat, like the skin and the bones, and they had to figure out how to make fire to cook the thing. Could be a while. Well, first person was just sitting on a hollow log, chewing on a carrot, thinking of something to do. Oh, there's that pile of skin from the animals they're not going to use. We could take the bones, hit them together, and we'd have an idiophone or an idiobone. And if they break, well, we can always give them to those friendly four-legged things that have been hanging around a lot lately. But what about the skin? The skin. And the hollow log. The skin and the hollow log. Stretch the skin over the hollow log. First person had just invented the world's third family of instruments. Of course, you know them as the drums. But maybe you've also noticed a pattern in these names. So you might realize that we're going to end that word with phone. So what's vibrating in a drum? If you said skinophone, you're that close. It's the membranophones, a skin or membrane vibrating to make the sound. And we divide those up into families by shape: cylinders, cones, barrels, waisted drums that go in at the middle and back out at the ends, frame kettle long, and the goblet shape, like the djembe from West Africa that you just heard. The membranophones, the drums. Well, first person was busy playing all of those fantastic new idiophones, chordophones, and membranophones. And the other first people came up and said, "Hey, first person, you sure are making a lot of..." And if you finished that sentence with the word music, thank you. And if you said sound, well, that is a fact. If you said noise, well, there are always critics for new music. But either way, the first people needed to get some sleep. So first person took all the new instruments and went down to the river, where it would be quiet for everyone else, but where the wind was blowing. And down by the end of the river there at the edge, there were some plants growing: cane and reed, hollow plants, and some of them were broken off at the tops. So when the wind blew across these reeds, it made a sound that was quite new and amazing. Let's see. And first person had just invented the fourth family of world instruments. Now you already know the pattern, but what's vibrating here? Perhaps you came up with window phone. Pretty close. It's the aerophones with that Greek root spelling. An air column vibrating makes this family, and unlike the band and orchestra families where the woodwinds and the brass are separated, here they're together because they're using the same science principle for making vibration, a moving column of air. There's even a kind of aerophone called a free aerophone, and you're going to meet a couple of those in just a little while. There is a more modern family as well, a fifth family, and it's instruments that use alternate sources for vibration, like electricity or magnetism, even water and fire. Yes, there are pyrophones. People around the world really enjoy designing, building, and performing with their own homemade instruments. Now, in my experiments around here, I've come up with a few things that you might try at home or that might inspire you in some different directions. So we'll get started with the first family, the idiophones. And one reason we're going to start there is that's where I started. My mother, Marjorie, allowed me to play the pots and the pans and the mixing bowls on the kitchen floor with a wooden spoon when I was a baby. So here's to that. It must have been a joyful noise. Hey, this is a mixing bowl from a JCPS surplus auction, and there happens to be a message in it to all our students at home. Now, shakers are also in the idiophone family. One of the easiest things to make, a rattle trap contraption it is. Put some rice and beans or any kind of gravel in there, close the top up, you got something good. Different ways to play it too. Here's one I like to call the beachophone. It's just some, what do you call these? Pellets, I guess, inside a CD holder. A free sonic trip to the wave. And here's one with a bonus. Still the rice and beans as a shaker, but 2 caps on either side and a handle taped in to make it a tic-tac or bolangu style drum. The rain stick is a very popular idiophone. Palo de lluvia in Spanish, and this one has seeds, rice, other mysteries on the inside with some nails through the side to slow that flow down. Here's another one I made from a recognizable material. On the inside, however, music wire, and on the outside, some blobs of hot glue to keep it soft on the hands. I must have been out of my gourd when I made this. But you might have something like this at home if you don't have all that other stuff, just a little mailing tube. They often come with ends, so you can close it up, tape them if you're finished building. This one has rice on the inside. And then I added something a little different. I found some of this stuff, gutter mesh, and I crumpled it up to slow that flow in the inside there. Let's give it a try. Very gentle rain. Now, you know the xylophones and metallophones are in the idiophone family as well. Now, you know metallophone has metal vibrating, the metal sound, but what's a xylo? XYLO, it turns out is wood in Greek. So let's take a look first at a metallophone. This is a kind of a funny one. Put it together from some wrenches, and they're up on some wacky noodles, some swim pool noodles. I'm going to be playing them with these extra small wrenches as well. And I'll back up a little bit so you can hear and see it. I'll give you a little bit more room. There we go. You never know. If you don't have wrenches, but you have a few small scraps of wood, you could build something like this as well. You'll see that the bars are up on a little bit of foam, but you could really put them just on a soft blanket. Probably still hear the pitches. I've arranged them that way. Let's see what it sounds like. Yeah, there you go. So we've got the xylophones, we've got the metallophones. Whew, there's a lot going on in the idiophone family. By the way, this coffee cup is an idiophone too, because the weight of the handle actually changes the vibration pattern on the rim. If you play it at the 90-degree intervals, you should hear one pitch, and if you go for the 45 multiples, you might hear a different pitch. Let me give it a try for you. I hope that's clear, and now you know you can start your day with an idiophone. What about the chordophones? Well, I love putting strings on things and just seeing how they sound, and I'll share one of them from the Falls of the Ohio. Another fabulous piece of driftwood. This one from a workshop I was doing with 4th graders down at the Falls, and they were to get their own pieces of wood to make an instrument, and one student brought this back and said, "Oh, I don't like this piece. It has a crack in it." I said, "No problem. I've got some spares. Take your pick." And I threw this in the bucket and thought, firewood. But when I got home, I thought, well, why not put a string on it and see what it can do? And thus, from the scrap heap was born the driftar with its own built-in whammy bar. But if you don't have music wire and pegs or some old guitar strings to fool around with, I bet you have this. Just a cardboard box with some rubber bands on it. We've made a rubber band harp. Let's give it a try. Sorry about the extended solo, but rubber band players love to stretch out. So we're going to move on to the membranophones, and frankly, that's one of the harder instrument families to build, especially if you're using actual animal skin. But fortunately for drummers, everything in the world can be played like a drum, and I got in trouble for that a lot in school in the early days. So you might have an empty vessel around, some kind of a garbage can, plastic or metal, either one can work. I happen to have this bucket around, and the interesting thing with anything is just trying to find out what the different sounds are in it. So got one in the middle there, a little different one there, and got my edge, right? And the great thing about these is, if you can't carry a tune in a bucket, you can still play the bucket. And talking of drums, what about the talking drums? Here's one from Ghana, West Africa. And you can see that wasted design. It goes in at the middle and back out again. So you can squeeze the strings, tightening the skins on either side and taking the pitch up. Used for conversations with drum language. You can actually speak literal phrases with these up and down melodies. I made a similar drum out of PVC reducing pipes glued together, and a little bit of weed whip as my chords, and a couple of pieces of rawhide and some frames there at the top in a circle. And if you like the sound of the talking drum, but you don't have any of those materials, get yourself a tin can and a little bit of water inside. Half an inch should do it. Then now, in the aerophone family, there's one really easy one to build, and it's actually easy to play too. You don't have to blow into it at all. It's called the bull roarer, and it has a great history. Invented in Africa, in Australia, and also here by Native Americans. Let me show you one. This is one my friend Mark made, a beautiful piece of Osage orange with some nice decorative wood burning on it. You can see there is a small hole and a string through that. And in order to play the bull roarer, you simply swing it over your head or at your side. Now, this is really an outside instrument, but I'll make do and try not to hit anything. Let's see. There we go. If you wanted to make one at home, how about a paint stick with a hole in the end? Your string tied with a little knot or loop there will help it to swing. And at the other end, I tie another loop so that you have something to hang on to. See if we can get that one very quickly. Now you can see it curving away from me and then curving back toward me as the string tightens and then retightens the other way. These are also great for extensive decoration, a huge part of beautiful instrument making. Now, another instrument from Australia in the aerophone family, a pretty intriguing one called the didgeridoo. And that, I've got one to show you from Australia. Here's a nice painting on it of a scene from the outback. And then the bottom contains some fabulous dot paintings and a wonderful alligator. They are not difficult to build. It's just an empty tube, but very difficult to play. Circular breathing is the trick. You breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. And the players in Australia often also add the sounds of nature. So insects or a kangaroo hopping across, or perhaps a dingo. So we'll give this a try. You might be able to get that together with a wrapping tube. Put some tape around the end so it doesn't get too soggy. Another one of the original aerophones, the panpipes. And here I thought I ought to show you a recent, less than successful instrument. Where is that little baby? 3 small straws. I couldn't get this thing to play very well. I'll give it a try. You do have to close the end somehow. I'll put a finger over. That was better than usual. But you can see it's a challenge to play. I thought maybe bigger straws. I put some foam inside to seal that bottom section and set my pitches. Let's give a listen. A little better. Well, here's another one. A giant one, in fact. And this one you can't play very well with blowing, but we can strike it, and it's a percussive aerophone. Yes, if you do happen to have some of these little straws, there's one thing you can do with them called the straw bow. You will see I've cut a couple of notches in the end to give these pointed tongues. Then you want to flatten that down, either with a pencil or pen on a table, or it's your instrument, you can put your mouth on it. All right, making a reed like that. And then to play, put your lips over the front of the reed and blow from the back of your throat. Don't put your teeth on it. Well, we got a sound, and if you want to add more sounds, you can see some small finger holes I've cut just by pinching and cutting a couple of quick snips with scissors. Let's see what that does to the straw bow sound. Nothing yet. That happens. If there are any band or orchestra directors watching this, I want to assure you that this demonstration will in no way result in an increase in the oboe pipeline in years to come. But if it did happen, it would certainly be a shame. Now, you know all about the families. It's time for the quiz. Here's another instrument my friend Mark made, and I'd like to play it for you and see if you can figure out which family it fits into. Idiophones, but wait, there's more. You're right, membranophones, but wait, there's more. I hope you can hear those strings inside the box with a wooden ball bouncing up and down on top of them. Yes, it's a chordophone, but wait, of course it is. An aerophone too. It's all the instrument families together as one. I hope you had a good time on the journey to the creation of music today. Certainly want to thank you for joining me, and thank the Kentucky Performing Arts for putting this together and the city of Louisville for doing their part. Again, I hope that you and your families are well and enjoying creating around you with the arts.